Welcome to Online TV. I'm your host, Mr. Jeff Mann. I'm an information security consultant within the risk security and privacy practice of online business systems. Online is a digital transformation and cybersecurity consultancy. Since 1986, we've been using technology to deliver dramatic business results for companies throughout North America. I'm joined today by my colleague and coworker, Mr. Greg Hyde. Greg, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
We've been going through a series that's been looking at scoping for PCI. We've talked a little bit about the history of scope, sort of the whys of scope. I'd like to focus now on the hows of scoping. So what are some best practice recommendations, or just how does a company get started if they've determined, yeah, we want to do this scoping thing to approach PCI, their PCI assessment?
There's a number of different ways they approach it. One of them is just very binary. Why do you need the data at all? Mm-hmm. Another piece of that is transforming that data, turning it into a token, which still is cardholder data, even if it's tokenized data, as well as using appliances for cryptology and doing data transformation, and actually in some ways really transferring the risk to a third-party processor, although ultimately the risk lies with the individual, the organization that responsible for that card initially.
Well, I would actually sort of restate that a little bit. They certainly believe that they're transferring the risk over to third parties. What they're often not aware of is that they're not necessarily transferring the liability if and when something goes wrong, and God forbid a breach happens.
That's a great point, Jeff, because when we talk about scope and segmentation with clients, we'll often talk about whose name ends up at the top of the paper if there's a breach. Is it the third-party processor, or is it that merchant or service processor that's going to be identified as delinquent with the care of that cardholder data?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it, and certainly something that the boards and C-level positions that most companies care a lot about is back in the days when you may recall, you're somewhat my age, maybe a little bit older, but there used to be this thing called newspapers, and the statement in the early days was you wanted to avoid being a headline in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. People don't know what that means these days. So you mentioned segmentation is the whole notion of discovering where your cardholder data is and isolating it within your network to a particular place or places. Is network segmentation pretty much how you accomplish that, or are there other, you've been sort of describing techniques of how you sort things out, but when it comes right down to it, are we not really talking about network segmentation?
At its most base level, yes, we are. We're looking at those controls of the data packets as they go across the network. The challenge for QSAs as the technology has evolved is you had the layer 3 firewalls, now you have the contents firewalls, you have application aware firewalls with different zones. The concept of doing rule set reviews and access control lists, that's all changed. And the standard is, as a framework, it still provides a good opportunity to be able to analyze those technologies. But overall, it has substantially changed that whole segmentation and scoping strategy, including access controls and virtual deployments.
Yeah, what I find fascinating, I know we mentioned in a previous segment how network segmentation, which is really at the end of the day what we're talking about, isn't a PCI requirement. It's a strongly recommended thing that you do. But the PCI standard itself has evolved to the point in version 3, what are we up to, 3.2.1 now, that while they don't require you to do network segmentation, if you are doing network segmentation, there's quite a few requirements these days that help you prove that you're actually doing network segmentation and doing it well and really maintaining it over time.
And a key point is that maintenance and not letting a PCI assessment be a point in time without going ahead with those operational pieces that you want to make sure stay secure year round, not just in time for the PCI assessment.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks for that. We will come back in future sessions and drill down on things like network segmentation.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.